About a mile from the mainland of Nova Scotia, the eastern outpost of Canada, lies Cape Breton Island, where approximately 140,000 people live a somewhat secluded but progressive life, depending largely on agriculture, fishing, and mining for their livelihood. It is believed that this historic old island was discovered and named by Basque fishermen who crossed the Atlantic in search of whales more than a century before Columbus discovered America. And there is stronger evidence that John and Sebastian Cabot landed here in 1497. Cape Breton is 110 miles long and about 80 miles wide. And thanks to a network of very good roads, a complete tour of the island is only a matter of a few days. We are now traveling in the region of the Bras d'Or Lakes. When the French pioneers first looked upon these waters, it must have been in the golden light of the setting sun, suggesting to them the name of Bras d'Or, or arms of gold. Although the French pioneers may have been responsible for naming many of the old landmarks, including Cape Breton itself, and although there is still a small French colony on the island, the majority of the inhabitants are of Scottish descent. Outstanding among the famous Scotsmen associated with Cape Breton was Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, as well as many other useful things. Dr. Bell lived for several years in this little community known as Baddeck, and he conducted many of his experiments here. It was from the frozen waters of this lake in the winter of 1909 that an airplane built under Dr. Bell's supervision took off on the first flight in the British Empire. The town hall of Baddeck houses many interesting old relics that have been found at various times around the island, and the town clerk, or the town clerk as he calls himself, proudly exhibits a few interesting examples for us. In his opinion, this sword once belonged to the Cabots. And he also believes this miniature cannon was once in the possession of the early explorers of Cape Breton. Although we cannot prove the authenticity of these relics, we will vouch for the sincerity and enthusiasm of the local historian, who is a great credit to his community. Not far from the town of Baddeck stands the house in which Alexander Graham Bell spent his summers for many years prior to his death. Here, the great inventor enjoyed the waning years of his life with his devoted wife, and among their favorite haunts was this woodland lane through which they once strolled hand in hand. Privileged visitors may now traverse the romantic lane which leads to the summit of the hill overlooking the broad expanse of lakes, where Mr. and Mrs. Bell often sat and watched the setting sun, and where, in keeping with their wishes, their mortal remains now lie at rest. A modest tribute to one of the world's greatest inventors. Continuing our journey, we pass through the Margaree Valley, one of the scenic highlights of the Cabot Trail. The Margaree River is only one of Nova Scotia's 40 prolific salmon streams, and here the fishing is at its best in late August and September. Aside from fishing, world-renowned artists have found inspiration in the colorful settings through which the waters of Nova Scotia flow. Farm settings that look as though they were designed for paintings rather than the products of agriculture for which this region is noted. Owing to its numerous rivers and lakes, Cape Breton has a ferry boat system which keeps traffic moving in a rather unique manner. Although it's just a short journey, the old skipper takes his job very seriously. feeling as much responsibility for each crossing as would the captain of an Atlantic steamship. One of the attractions along the Cabot Trail is the grave of the famous giant, Angus McAskill, who was 7 feet 9 inches tall and weighed 425 pounds. He toured the world with the equally famous midget, Tom Thumb, and died in 1863 at the age of 38 years. A few miles off the Cabot Trail, we pause to admire a pretty little French maiden who shows us how hook rugs are made. The hook rug business here dates back to the first French settlers on Cape Breton Island, and it is perpetuated today by their descendants, who raise their own sheep and prepare the wool. It takes a good worker 15 days to make a medium-sized bedroom rug. Cape Breton rugs are usually designed with floral patterns or motifs suggesting the sea. This is a copy of the famous Blue Nose, which was built in Nova Scotia and won 3 out of 5 contests for the International Fisherman's Trophy. Although these rugs may originate in very humble circumstances, they have become internationally famous and may be seen today in all parts of the world. Under the apple blossoms with busy little Alouette and her hooked rugs is a desirable place to linger. But travelers must travel, so we take to the trail again. And our trail leads us over hills and down valleys, across rivers and bridges, under beautiful cloud-laden skies, until we finally arrive at the grand metropolis of Cape Breton Island, the city of Sydney. Sydney was founded in 1785 by British loyalists from New York State, headed by a former mayor of Albany, and it now constitutes the greatest industrial area in Nova Scotia. It has the largest self-contained steel plant in Canada, manufacturing a general assortment of steel products. Its coal mines extend far under the sea, and from them comes the only coal at tidewater on the Atlantic seaboard. Among the other thriving industries of Sydney are woodworking plants, foundries, and machine works, making it a humming city in an attractive setting of sea, lakes, rivers, and historical mementos. And so, as the shadows of twilight begin to fall over this Pittsburgh of Canada, we turn our camera on the setting sun and most reluctantly say, farewell to Cape Breton Island.